Well, good afternoon. I'm Jennifer. This is A Country Life, and today I have for you all my Q&A. So what I've been doing is I've been taking all of the questions from the comments in 1 month, and then I answer them and post them the next month. So these are all the questions from the February videos. So I should be clear on this. If you leave a comment on a video that was posted in January or December or 3 years ago, I'm probably not going to get that into these into this list of questions. It will be from the videos from the month before. Let's get right to it. But there are about 4 times as many questions this time as last time. So I'm going to try to keep this pretty snappy for you all. Denise asks, how did your PowerPoint presentation go? She's referring to a PowerPoint presentation that I gave to our homeschool co-op all about keeping transcripts. I feel like I have a hair on my lip. Keeping transcripts and everything for your high school student, report cards and transcripts and college entrance and just a lot of things like that. So anyway, that went really, really great. I still want to do a transcript writing, I don't know if you call it a class, but just kind of like a talk for all of you. And it's just trying to carve out the time to make that happen. Carrie Ann asks, where do you get that burger making tool? Amazon? Yes, I believe mine actually came from Cabela's. It's the Weston brand, and they also carry that at Amazon. They may carry it, at like other kitchen type stores, I'm not sure, but you can buy a single press, a double press. They have lots of different options out there, but the one I have, I've had for 20 years and it works great. Suzanne asks where to find the flat top spoon that I used on the onions. Know where I can get one of those. So the flat top spoon that she is referring to is a silver spoon. I will insert a picture here for you. It's a silver spoon that has a nice bowl to it, and then it has a little flat, and instead of curving at the end, it goes flat. And that is actually made by Rada Cutlery, and they have a website, Rada Cutlery does, as well as you can find it on Amazon. Judy asks, do you find that your inversion table helps any issues? So if you have watched me do laundry at all or been in that room with me, you know that we have an inversion table, and I've never ever used it. Warren uses it, so he kind of goes where he'll be using it quite often, and he does find that it helps him a lot. It's just, again, making the time. He goes on for 5 minutes, which doesn't sound like a long time, but still, just making it become a habit. But he does really, really like it. He actually just said this morning, he's like, I really need to get back on my inversion table every morning, because he's been cutting firewood and he's been sanding. And sanding, he gets, since he's the only one, what happens is that he gets in and out of a dump truck, in and out of the excavator, in and out of the dump truck. So I think that's like 6 in and outs for each load of sand that he does, if I calculated that right, for each load of sand that he does. And it really puts a lot of wear and tear, pulling yourself up into the high equipment. So he was just kind of saying, boy, my shoulders, I need to get back on the inversion table. Okay, so yes, he does find it helps. Jennifer asks, did Warren like the cookies? Is the recipe a keeper? This is referring to the cranberry cookies, so they used fresh cranberries. And yes, we all liked those cookies. They're a soft cookie and they're very perishable. So you really only have a couple days unless you were to freeze them or something, because the moisture starts to kind of come out of the cranberries and into the cookie part of it, and they will start to get kind of soggy. So yes, we like them. We actually did give a few to the chickens because I didn't get them popped into the freezer and they started to get just too soggy, but they were very good. Nadia asks, what do you do when Maria eats such a little bit of food? Does she have something else? Any tips? So basically, so I guess this is kind of my idea on food as it unfolds after we've had 7 kids. I prepare a meal. I oftentimes will have 2 or more different items of food on our island for them to choose. The main dish to some kind of vegetable, some sort of fruit. There might be, in fruit could be applesauce, canned fruit, fresh fruit. I might have bread and butter, I might have cottage cheese out, I might have some sliced cheese or some crackers or something. So I do try to put out a variety of foods so that they can find something that they like for supper, and it doesn't just become where supper is just all about talking about who doesn't want to eat what, because that makes for a very, very miserable supper hour. I try not to make a huge issue of it. I guess if they looked like they ate their food and they didn't complain. So I have some that are bigger complainers. So they might have a much heartier appetite than Maria, but they will complain and then they'll take huge helpings and then they won't like something, or then they push it around their plate and make it look like they ate it, but now they've just kind of mangled it up. And then 15 minutes after supper, they're like, oh, I want a bowl of cereal. Oh, I want some chips. Oh, can I have a granola bar? That type of thing. That's actually more of a problem for me anyway than Maria, who just takes a tiny bit of food, because she doesn't even come to me after supper and say, oh, I'm hungry now. That's just how she is. She just doesn't seem to need a lot of food. So yeah, as for tips, I would just say, try to be sure that there's something out there that you know that your kids like to eat, whether it's, you know, some cheese and crackers to go with the meal, or whether it's, you know, bread and butter or bread and peanut butter, or just something to go along with the meal so they participate in the family meal. And then if they're really, really hungry later, we're not perfect about this, but usually we just say to the kids, you can have a fruit or a vegetable. Fresh, you know, we're not opening up cans of applesauce or cans of, you know, canned fruit, that type of thing. But if you want a banana or an apple, or you want a carrot or a celery stick, go right ahead. And usually if they're really hungry, they'll actually go and eat that. If they're not that hungry, they'll just be like, I don't really want that, because all they really wanted was just like a packaged granola bar or something. Deb says, was your flour sifter passed down from a family member? I've never seen, or I never see those kind anymore. So I have one of those metal sifters with the screen in the bottom, and then you just turn the little crank and it sifts the flour, sugar, other spices and that through. And no, I don't. Well, I guess it probably was my mom's, actually. I'm not really sure if that would be considered an heirloom or not, but I do know that it was hers, and when she moved, then she gave it to me, and I kind of go back and forth. I use it, and I get into a kick of using it, and then I kind of get out of it, and I just don't use it. But right now, I'm on a kick of using it. Starry Night says, do you find that girls seem to have more laundry than boys? Actually, no. Not in my case. I feel like my boys are the ones who are always wanting to change clothes. They're always wanting to put something completely clean on every single day. I actually find that the boys are a lot, that the boys make a lot more laundry. Dana says, can you tell me where you got your new nut chopper from? The nut chopper that she's referring to, it has a little glass. It has a little glass base and a little tiny chopper on the top, but again with a little hand crank, and you put the walnuts, pecans, whatever in the top, grind it up, and they fall to the bottom, and they're just like chopped. And that I picked up at Amazon. The original one that I had, actually, again, was my mom's, and the glass piece broke, and I kept the grinder for such a long time, trying it on all different jars that we would end up, you know, getting, you know, from like different jellies or jams or pickles or olives or whatever, and I just couldn't ever find a jar that it actually fit onto, so I finally just broke down and bought a new one. All right, Emily writes on here that lots of people want to know about ordering a cookbook through the mail and how to go about doing that. So if you want one cookbook, it's $18.72. You just write a check to A Country Life, or send very, very well concealed cash, I suppose, if that works better for you. And you can send that to A Country Life, P.O. Box 33, Pittsville, Wisconsin, 54466. And I always have that address in the description box below. So if you click on the little see more, or the little arrow that is on one of the sides here of the videos, that kind of right underneath it, that will open up a description box where there will be a lot more information. Usually I'll have a little description of the video. I might have links down there to things and different products that I used. I also always have the information for ordering a cookbook. And so that's the best way to do it. If you are an international viewer and you would like a cookbook, the best thing to do, well, what has happened recently is the shipping cost has gone way, way up. So it was around $9, $9.50, something like that, to ship over to Europe. It has now gone up to just under $17. So what'll happen is you will order a cookbook, and you will already be charged $4 for shipping, and then you will send me through PayPal to my email, which is cranmom7@gmail.com. You'll send an additional $13, and then I will get your cookbook shipped out to you. Australia is still a no-go. I'm so sorry about that. In Canada, I'm not exactly sure what their shipping cost has gone up to. Sherry or maybe Cherry says, Jennifer, where did you get your hamburger press? Oh, same question. So I got that at Cabela's, but you can also find it at Amazon, and I will link it in the description box below. Melanie asks, when are you going to talk about high school transcripts? Yes, like I said earlier, I was just talking to Warren a couple nights ago saying, what would be a good time for me to do, because what I'm thinking is doing like a Zoom call or maybe a Microsoft Meet or something like that. So I'm still trying to figure out all the details of that and a time. Alicia asks, does your white sweater tend to get fuzzballs on it? Mine does, and they get on everything. I think she's referring to like a cardigan style white sweater that I have that I pull over a lot of times, like when I'm just cold. It's a little extra layer. And no, it doesn't. It just must be a certain fabric or a certain type of weave or something that it doesn't seem to leave fuzzies on things. Cynthia says, just wondering how you heat your house. Well, we heat 99% of it, we heat with wood heat. So we have an outside wood burner. We load that with wood that has a water jacket around it. The fire that's in the wood burner, it heats the water. The water travels through pipes over to the house, does something in the basement, and then warm air blows out of all of our vents. And that's how we heat our house. We do have gas backup, and every now and again we have used that, like especially if maybe we're going to be out of town, we'll set that to 60 or something just so that we don't have pipes freezing and that type of thing. Darlene says, what's a whiskey burger? A whiskey burger is a hamburger with a barbecue whiskey sauce. So in the whiskey sauce is butter and onions, and then I add some chopped jalapenos, whiskey, and then at the very end, I add barbecue sauce, and I mix that all up in a pan, and then we spoon that onto hamburgers and with a little extra cheese or something, and it's scrumptious. Shannon asks, what's the name of the book from Cranberry Cookies and Whiskey Burger Vlog? Oh boy, I'm going to have to look that up. Right here, I will have the title of that book run back and forth. I'll have to see if it's a homeschool book she's referring to or maybe a book that I was reading. I don't really know. Linda says, where do you get the spoon and spatula thing? So I'm thinking that she is asking about, again, that Rita Cutlery spoon that has like the flat base to it, and I mentioned already Rita Cutlery or at Amazon. Karen Knapp says, have you had Joe's hearing checked? Could be why he turns up the volume. We've actually had his hearing checked multiple times. Anytime he goes in for a well child check, they always check his hearing as well. And believe me, he can hear, because if I whisper something and he doesn't have his music on full volume, he can hear me just fine. I think actually that he really likes the loudness, because I think he likes that sort of like vibration or that bass in his chest. He really just seems to like that. And he dances very vigorously, and maybe just all of his jumping and all the sounds that he makes when he's dancing, maybe he just needs the music up loud so he can still hear it over all of that. Nancy says, was I seeing things, or was there a burning log outside the fireplace at the lodge? Yes, just before I turned on, actually right as I was turning on my camera that day when we were at the Powers Bluff snow tubing hill, we were inside the lodge, and I was just turning on my camera, and a log was actually rolling out of the fireplace. However, it still was safe. That's a completely concrete floor and everything, and they do have some like yellow they have some yellow tape to keep everybody back so they don't get too close to the fire, although everyone wants to stand right up close to it. But yeah, so I didn't get to actually get the footage of it rolling out because the footage was pretty blurry because I was just turning my camera on. But you did see correctly, and there was a log on the floor, but it's a concrete floor. Kelly asks, how do you deal with ashes in that big outdoor burner? Well, every month or so, I think, Warren lets the fire burn down, and then he just shovels them out, and we have an ash pile behind the wood burner. Carrie Ann asks, can you post the recipe for your laundry booster? I have posted it a couple different times, and I'll tell you again right here. So you just take 1 large box of borax, which is around 3.5 to 4.5 pounds, I believe, and then you take 1 large box of Arm & Hammer washing soda, and that I believe is around 2.5 pounds or so, the box is, and you mix that all together, and then you grind up 2 bars of Castile soap. It's Dr. Bronner's Castile soap, and there's a few different scents. They have an almond scent, I believe there's an unscented, a lavender, and I've had both the almond and the lavender. I like them both. I do think I like the lavender better than the almond. I can link all of those items at Amazon as well. However, your best bet, I think, is going to be to just pick those up at Walmart or something like that, because I do believe the prices are a lot less there. The soap, the bars of soap might be similar, and Walmart only carries, I think, 1 or 2 of the scents. Anne says, so that is your whole house heat. Yes, that is how we heat the whole house, with that wood burner. We also heat the shed with that wood burner, and we also heat our schoolroom floor, because that's an addition. And the way our house was built, there wasn't really any way to get venting or like ductwork into that room, because everything is a concrete floor in that area of our house. And so we put in-floor heating in there. So we have in-floor heating there, ductwork heating the rest of our house, and then Warren also heats the shed with the work shed area, not the entire shed, but the workshop area of his shed with the wood burner. Midge asks, how do your water pipes not freeze? I think she's referring to the pipes that go from the outdoor wood furnace into the house, and they are below the frost line, and we also run antifreeze. There's some special antifreeze, I believe, that Warren runs in those as well to help keep them from freezing. Coffee Fetcher says, please may I ask why the wood burner is in the garden miles from the house and you don't have a small indoor wood burner? I hope that question was asked with love. Maybe it's just the way I read it. Okay, but so it's actually not in the garden. It's actually not. It's on completely the opposite side of the house as our garden. And it's not miles from the house. I'm actually filming from my bedroom right now, and if I look out my window, boom, there's my wood burner. And why we do not have a small indoor wood burner. We actually used to have a wood burner in the basement, and that's how we heated our whole house. But our insurance company made some changes, and we could not, we could have, but there would have been a very, very large rider on our policy to continue using the indoor wood burner, which was in the basement. So we ended up opting for the outdoor wood burner. So Crystal says, have you ever stopped to think what would happen if there were no grocery deliveries for a month? Yes, I've stopped and thought about that quite often, and that is why I keep a very, very well stocked pantry and freezers and that type of thing. Susan asks, will you share your price book with us? I am still working on the price book, Susan, and right now it's just written. It's just written out for me, and it's pretty sloppy. So I would actually, in my dream, in my dream world, I've talked to you guys about that, in my perfect world, I would actually like to make some sort of document that I can share with you all in some manner. Honey Bear asks, do all of your kids really like venison, or do they eat it because that is what there is? I think they all really like venison, and they all really like hamburger too. So if I serve something with venison, they're very happy about it. If I serve it with beef, they're very happy. Quite honestly though, times that we have gotten like a half of a cow, they're not overly thrilled with beef steak. And I'm not sure if it's just because of the way I cook it compared to how I cook venison steak. I don't really know, but they actually prefer the venison steak over the beef steak. At least my younger kids. I mean, my older adult kids now, I don't necessarily know what they prefer. Living with the Browns says, how do you motivate your children for homeschooling? Well, I just don't allow anything. So there's no screens, there's no TV watching, there's no going outside to play, there's just no. Is your school done? No. Oh, you want to? No. So that's how I motivate them. In order to have all of the perks and the snack and whatever else, and lunch, they have to do their schoolwork. Angela asks, will you please share how you're putting together your price book? I am getting to that. I'm working on it slowly here. Maria, do you do fish and meatless every Friday? We do. my battery's gonna die. I'll be back. All right, that was quick because I've gotten to the point where I have 4 batteries now, and I just always have a charger plugged in, and I just keep on, there's just always a battery charging. So I'm here, and it only took me about a minute. So Maria said, do you do fish and meatless every Friday? We don't. We are working at it. So of course, during Lent, always meatless Fridays. And we are working at it, but it's kind of a work in progress. Sometimes what it is, it's that we just, since it's not ingrained in me 100%, sometimes I forget at lunchtime and we'll have leftovers from the night before. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh shoot, I wanted to do, you know, I was abstaining from meat today. And then, you know, I just forget. So we're working on it. And Laurel says, is it just me or are those a lot of meat-based meals? Well, it's not just you. Yes, there's a lot of meat-based meals. We like meat. Juanita said, I see yellow rice on your menu. What is yellow rice? Yellow rice is a saffron seasoned rice. You can buy it in, it comes in a little yellow bag, and there's a couple different brands, like Vigo, I think is one of them, maybe Vigo or something. That's the one that I see in my stores. But I know some other people have commented on my videos before that there is another brand out there that I think they say is better than that brand. I just haven't seen that brand around. I'm also, it's something I keep thinking that I want to do, but I forget to write it down. I want to see if I can find a recipe online for yellow rice, just, you know, where I add my own seasonings to it, and see if I could, you know, do something like that where I could keep like a big canister of it on hand, because we really did like it. Athena says, does Joe have sensory issues? Not particularly. Sometimes he doesn't really like it, like if I rub his back or something like that, he'll kind of go like that. So, but he doesn't have sensory issues like with food or anything like that. Allegra asks, have you ever tried spreading whipped cream cheese on a dense bread like your banana bread? I have not. We have always, I grew up in a family, I don't know if my mom ever bought cream cheese, quite honestly. It was just, cream cheese was not, you know, a popular item. But butter, I grew up in a family that you spread butter on your, you know, quick breads like that. Warren grew up in a family that did not do that. So he thinks that's totally strange. But I still like to spread butter on it. But whipped cream cheese sounds delicious too, because I do love cream cheese. MK and Mom says, can I get your crusty mini loaf recipe with all bran? I did just post that recipe, I believe. No, I think the video is actually, the footage is still on my camera, so I will find that video and link that in the description box for you. Elizabeth asks, where do you get your blue ceramic measuring cup? Oh, I bet. She's talking, I have a set of 4. They're Pioneer Woman measuring cups, and they're kind of like a kind of a triangular shape, and they were a gift from a friend a number of years ago. It's a set of 4, 1 cup, half cup, third cup, and a 4th cup. Years ago, like when I was kind of when I was first on YouTube, I was able to find those at Amazon and link to them, but I have not seen them in a long time. And I know that that old link I have it's like a dead link because it doesn't go to anything anymore. Rhonda says, I don't have a bread machine. Can I use a Kitchenaid mixer? I've seen lots of people do that. I don't have a lot of experience with that because it's just not something that I have. I don't know if I've ever. I think Amber once made some yeast dough in the bread, or in the Kitchenaid, and I know you can do it. I would just look up maybe a few different recipes and see how long they let it knead. You have to have that dough hook and just see. I don't know if it's, you know, 10, 15, I don't know how long you have to let it knead. That would really be or I feel like that would be the thing that you need to know, is how long should you keep mixing it? And I don't know the answer to that. Kathleen asks, have you ever been to the House on the Rock in Wisconsin? And yes, we have. I believe that is over near Pepin, Wisconsin, someplace. There's also another House on the Rock, which is like down in Blue Mounds, or right in that area. So there's a couple, and their names are real similar. And I've been to the one that is near Pepin, along the Mississippi River right there, but I don't think I've ever been to the Lloyd Wright. Is that his name? I don't think I've ever been there. Possibly as a child, I might have been there with a field trip through school. Cynthia says, do you have to clip the coupon on the app for the digital buy 5 deals? Yes. Yes, so I have a QR reader on my phone, so she's referring to Pick and Save, which is a Kroger type store, and they have these deals where you can get 5. They always have them like right down the side of their flyer, and they're like super, super deals. And you can like do it 5 times. You can redeem it 5 times. So I have a QR code reader on my phone. I snap the picture that's on the flyer. It's like right up here in the corner. I snap that picture, and then it opens up the Pick and Save website or something on my phone, and I clip the coupons that I want. And then when I go to Pick and Save, I type in my phone number into their little, where you type in for alternate ID, because I don't know where my little swipe card is. So yes, that's how that works. And then you can use the coupon, and it automatically comes off of the total of your bill at the end when you hit like subtotal or pay or whatever. Ellie says, what is Maria laying in watching the show on Prime? Is that usually for the grandkids? That is so funny that you guys noticed that. So we have a really long cedar chest that Warren built. I believe he built that either right in high school, like as a senior, or maybe right after he graduated high school. Well, anyway, it has a really big top. Well, we've had it, Warren's been out of high school for how long now? How long have we been out of high school? 30 years or something? Does that make sense? I think he's been out of high school for 30 or 31 or 32, something like that years. Okay, so that cedar chest, it's gotten a lot of use over the years. Well, anyway, the one day, we're all happy this happened, that it was Warren that this happened to, but he lifted up the lid and it just like slipped out of his hands and it fell backwards. And there's no stops on it to make it only open so far. It fell backwards and it completely cracked off. There already was a crack in the wood, and so it just cracked right off. So anyway, we took it off, and it was kind of like, oh my gosh, we got to do something for our coffee table now. And then the kids just started laying in it like it was a coffin or something, and they just love it. So all the blankets have always been in there. They bring all their pillows out, they line it up with pillows, and then they lay in there and they watch TV, and they absolutely love it. And yes, I've actually put Colt in there the one night when we were babysitting for him, and every time he'd wiggle, I'd be like, just lie down. And he lied down and he fell asleep. It was the cutest thing ever. So cute. Raji says, why are you homeschooling your children? I'm curious. Well, there's a lot of reasons why we're homeschooling. One is that we just really, really want to have the pulse on the education that they're receiving and know what is being taught and make sure that what is being taught is important to their future. Because I firmly believe, having been a teacher, it was a long time ago, and it was just 2 years, but having been a teacher and then also seeing the curriculums and things like that are coming out in our schools, and then also having a couple early years and then a couple more recent years where I was substituting, I just find that there's a lot of things that are being taught in schools that I think are best left for being taught at home, and I think there are a lot of things that are not being taught in schools that would be absolutely appropriate to teach in schools, and that's just one of the reasons why we are currently homeschooling. Crystal says, does Warren enjoy what he does? Is cranberry farming what he thought it would be, and if he changed careers, what would he do? I actually asked this question to him, and yes, he enjoys what he does. Like any job, there are parts of it that a person just doesn't like. And so there are parts of this that he doesn't like. One thing that comes to the top of my mind right now is spring frost watch. Like he says, it feels like you have a newborn baby every single year because the lack of sleep, and you just lose all motivation to do anything that's fun. So there's like about 2 months of time where you just feel like you're just constantly tired and you just don't want to do anything other than what you absolutely have to do for work. So I know that that's something that he doesn't like so much, but I mean, he's been doing it for so long. He gets through it every single year, and we just stay strong through it. And I try to remind him to go to bed early enough. That sounds like he's a little kid. No. Deb says, do you have patents pending on your farming and tool inventions? No. No, Warren just builds things just like all cranberry farmers do. They buy a piece of equipment from the, from the implement dealer or whatever, and then they just make it work for their situation. Every marsh is a little bit different. They all have, different size cranberry beds and different widths of the dikes in between the beds and different water setup and just different manpower abilities. And so everybody just makes equipment. And I do know that there have been some people that have done, like, tried to get patents and things like that. And I don't really know the success of that or not. Oh my goodness, there are so many questions here. Terry says, how does the heat get into the house? Also, how many spaces does the outdoor furnace heat? I answered that already. Arkesha asks, is the growing, hunting, and building generational or self-taught? Is the growing, hunting, and building? Yes, I would say that it's generational, for sure. I mean, it's just something that Warren grew up with. I grew up in a family that hunted and had gardens and things like that, so just generational. Donna asks, do you also use gas heat? And on occasion, we do. Honey Bear, did Warren grow up on the cranberry farm? Yep, already answered that one. Nancy, my question is, how do you get the sand out into the bogs if the ice is not thick enough to drive a dump truck out there? Well, then you just don't. So for our marsh, the way Warren works it, I should have had him come and join in on this one because I think there's going to be lots and lots of cranberry questions here coming up. For our marsh, what Warren does is he sands. The goal is to sand 1/3 of the marsh every year. So we are right at about, I think, 55 or 56 acres. And so then he wants to sand. So this year, he actually just this morning finished with the last 2 beds. He came in. He was so happy. He did 18.5 acres of sanding this year. So only the beds that he wants to sand are the ones that he actually is trying, super duper seriously to get 12 inches of ice. All of the other beds, they need to be encased in ice, but they don't need 12 inches. And if we have had years where we just did not get to make the ice. I mean, in our 25 years, my 25 years here, I feel like it's happened at least once where, for whatever reason, there was zilcho sanding happening just because of the ice situation. And then the next year, you just try to catch up. I feel like you guys want Warren to answer a lot of these questions now. Because, I mean, it has all kinds of things to do with fertilizer. And, I mean, they're all things that I could answer, but I just feel like it might be more fun if he answered. So I'm actually going to, I'm going to grab him when I get a chance, and I'm going to bring him in. Woo! Here we are.
I don't know.
This is how I'm going to sit, just like this.
Okay.
Okay, is that good? Okay, you can't do that because you're on a cereal box. And
Sorry.
It's going to wiggle. Okay, so I'm going to just catch you up to speed here a little bit. So I just did a whole bunch of questions. This is actually part of the video.
Okay.
I answered a whole bunch of questions, but there were so many. And a bunch of them were about cranberry farming because you did your, was that in February already? Yes, these are February questions.
Sure.
So you did a February video. We completely missed March already. But anyway, there are some questions. I started answering this one already from Crystal, but she wants to know, is cranberry farming what you thought it would be? And if you changed careers, what would that be?
Oh boy. Yeah, cranberry farming is what I thought it would be, just because
Look in there.
all right. I can't look.
You can't look there. You have to look there.
Okay. All right. So cranberry farming, I guess I would say, is what I expected. Since I grew up with it, I worked a lot of my high school part-time jobs were in working for cranberry companies, not always for my dad, but I knew what I was getting myself into. It wasn't necessarily my first choice. When I was in college, I was pretty sure I wasn't going to take the cranberry path. Time has a way of changing your perspective, and I had an opportunity to come back and take over the farm. I'm glad I made that choice. It's worked out well. What was the other part of the question?
So the other part of the question is, what would you do if you changed careers?
Boy, if I changed careers.
I can't wait to hear this.
Boy. Careers where I actually make money, because I love woodworking. I love working with wood, but it's something that I think it would be difficult to support a family on, because I like doing a lot of finish work. I enjoy welding. I may try my hand at as an independent welder. I don't know. I don't like working for people. I like being my own boss. So that would be hard.
All right, Rosemary asks, can I ask how much your fertilizer is? And she says in the UK it's 600 pounds per ton.
Fertilizer's all over the board right now. Last fall I bought everything I needed for this coming growing season. I paid double what I had paid the year before. It was right around that $700-800 a ton mark.
And that was purchased in 2021?
That was purchased in 2021, in the fall of 2021.
And what was it in, say, 2020?
2020, it was right around between the depending on the blend, $400 to $500 a ton. And what I'm hearing now is it's, for certain blends, it's close to triple.
There's a lot of questions about like snow rolling
Sure.
here. Sandra says, so you roll the compact snow so you can drive on it to bring in sand to spread, and when snow melts, sand gets on the cranberries? Question mark.
Okay. Well, we roll the snow so we don't have to plow it. And when you compact the snow, and you give it a few days of cold weather, it'll actually harden to the point where you can drive on it with a dump truck, and it more or less just becomes part of the ice. When the ice melts, that sand filters down through the cranberry vines. All right, to recap. So the sand filters down through the ice into the cranberry vines. And I always say there's like a 3-tiered benefit with sanding. It buries your leaf trash layer, where a lot of your worms like to overwinter. So it helps to reduce your worm population by smothering some of the worm eggs. It provides drainage. Cranberries like to be damp, but they don't like to be flooded out, so they need good drainage. And then the third thing is a lot of your new runner growth from the year before, those runners get buried, and when a runner gets buried, it immediately shoots uprights up through the sand, so it helps increase your upright density. And the key to growing a large crop of cranberries is upright density. The more uprights you have, the more flowers you'll have. The more flowers you have, if they get pollinated, you'll have fruit.
So Sandra, when you say snow melts the sand, no, when the snow melts, the sand gets on the cranberries, there actually aren't any cranberries in the bed at that time. It's cranberry vines that the sand gets on, and it just sifts down. So it
down
isn't
to the
like,
ground layer.
Yeah, it isn't like he's trying to cover the cranberry vines in sand or something.
No.
That sand sifts down through. KJC asks, why do you put sand on the plots? We've got that. Do you want the ice to stay as long as possible to act as an insulator, or what?
Well, right now, it's the end of March. We've had very cold weather. Last night it got down close to 0. I have the beds flooded, and there's still winter ice, and some now with this weather, some new ice. And honestly, it does act as an insulator. So I will hold on to that ice as long as it's there. It'll melt on its own when it warms up, and then you just wait for the frost to go out of the ground. And once the frost is completely out of the soil, we will pull the water off the cranberry beds and dry them out so that they can start growing.
Suzanne says, if there was a drought, fingers crossed you won't have one, do you have reserves? If not, do you truck water in?
We actually have a 3-tiered reservoir system. We have our main reservoir by the house, which is over 100 acres. We have the next tier, which we call Pond 12. That feeds into the main pond. And then above that, we have what we call the duck pond, which is not a lot of water, but it is another water storage. That in itself is probably another 20 acres, but it's quite shallow. So with those 3-tiered reservoirs, we're able to, even in a dry year, supply the water needs of the cranberry marsh. Yeah, with the 3-tiered reservoir system, we're able to do pretty well. And then we do recycle all our water. When we put on a flood, we have a return ditch where I can pump all the flood waters back. So we can completely recycle all our water.
Libby, this is a good one. So you're going to have to think of all your jobs you've had. She says, have you always been a cranberry grower? Supporting a family, yes.
Yeah, supporting the family, yes. I've had a lot of part-time jobs growing up.
Yeah, what were some of those?
My very first job ever, wiping weeds with Roundup for my dad. But my first non-family job would be corn detasseling for Kaltenberg Seed Farms. I felt at the time that it was the worst job ever. I was just a kid, so comparatively it wasn't that bad. Later in high school, I worked at Neighbors Cranberry Marsh, and I actually worked there during college too. I worked at the Point Bakery in Stevens Point in college.
Shopko.
Oh yes, I forgot.
forgot.
I worked at Shopko in the sporting goods department in high school. Then when I went to college, I worked on the university in the groundwater model project office, where we built plastic models of a groundwater flow system. The bakery was a great job. I mean, you could eat all the donuts you wanted as long as there weren't customers in the bakery at the time. I never left work hungry. My boss was great. If she knew I was trying to get to a class, she would pack me a bag of donuts to take with me. It was a great job. Great family that I worked for at the bakery.
How much did you get paid there?
I got paid $5 an hour. And then I got a raise. I got a raise to $5.50. I ended up getting another part-time job that paid $6, but the bakery could not go above $5.50 an hour. That was their limit of what they could pay part-time help.
Donna says, how often do you roll the snow?
I don't do any snow rolling in the early winter months because you don't know what weather's coming. I will usually start rolling snow a couple weeks before I plan to sand, so that I have the beds ready. And then I found too, it's best not to roll everything you plan on sanding, because sometimes when sanding starts, it gets really warm, and that snow actually helps to, as the snow's melting, it's not impacting your ice, just the snow's melting on top. And I've had it where halfway through sanding, the remaining beds don't have any snow left. It's all melted off down to the ice.
And then it gets like slippery.
Oh yeah.
Really slippery.
Very slippery.
And
when you have
wet
glare ice, it's hard to get traction with a dump truck.
Denise asks, do the tires on the vehicles used in the cranberry beds ever crush the cranberries?
They can. What we try to do is we pick the berries before the wheels get there. If you look on the harvest videos, the harrow rake goes in front of the tractor and there's another one behind it. So if I didn't have that front harrow rake down to pluck the cranberries off, the tires would crush fruit. And that's the whole reason why you have to have that front harrow rake, is you want to remove fruit before the tires get there. Yeah, you cannot drive around a cranberry bed during the growing season. You will crush flowers, buds, and eventually fruit. In fact, I get a little irate if I see people walking around in my cranberry beds.
Just a little bit. Joy just says, what's up with Warren? Yeah, I wonder the same thing. She says he's come a long way on being filmed.
Well, you know, I'm a work in progress.
That's good. All right, well, that is the end of the cranberry questions.
Okay.
I thought there actually were a lot more cranberry questions, but that's the end of those. Do you want to just stick around for the rest of the questions that I didn't get to the other day?
Sure.
A couple people asked us for our How Did We Meet story. I feel like we did this on a video maybe a couple years ago, but we'll save that one for the last question of this video. Teresa asks, can Joe do some more filming soon? He warmed my soul last time he got the camera. He's always filming, and I'm always editing and deleting footage.
Yeah, Joe loves to be on film.
Yeah.
And you never know what he's going to say or what he's going to do.
Or what he's going to do is exactly right. Andy, is Sam out of the house so much more these days, or is he just not wanting to be videotaped? Andy misses his musical skills. Sam is not out of the house. He actually probably in his room right now. Yeah. He should be heading out to work here shortly. But he homeschools in the morning. He goes to high school in the afternoon. He works for an hour. He works out. He's just out and about. Angela asks, will you be doing this once a month now? The plan is, yes, to do these questions once a month. And so this one is actually for February. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, not necessarily always with you, I guess. It depends on if there's questions that require you. But I did one in February for the January questions, and now I'm doing one here in March for the February questions, although it's the very end of March. So we might have another Q&A like already next week or something. Kathy asks, how are the older kids and grandchildren doing? Yes.
So I'm going to weld the last underside of the pipe.
That center section, I want to put 4 pipe across.
Yep, so I'll get those cut.
Get those cut. And then we're going to put them equidistant, so we'll have to...
Did you say equidistant?
Equidistant, is that all right? Does that work? So we will have to measure that out, mark it, and then you can tack those in.
Okay. I'll probably be able to get all the underside is done and get that one cut and the front center brace welded in. And hopefully get the rest of the fork cut.
Kathy asks, how are the older kids and grandchildren doing? And so they're all doing fine, actually. I mean, grandkids are fabulous. Fabulous, fabulous. And I don't usually say too much about them. I just always figure that their adult story is their story. And so they're doing well, and
very proud of our older kids.
Yep,
and our grandkids. I mean, they're all in the process of making their way in the world, and they're doing a great job.
Joanne wonders, have you thought about raising meat chickens?
Ooh, we've done meat chickens.
We have done meat chickens a number of years.
I've butchered a lot of meat chickens. It's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work. I don't know. I don't know if we'll do it this year. I don't have an order for meat chickens right now, so... And it's been a long time since we've done it, but...
It's one of those things where they're not that hard to raise.
No.
Butchering is a pain. But once they're in the freezer, it's so nice to have a freezer full of chickens. I can probably be talked into it.
Oh, okay, that's good to know. Kathleen says, do you can cranberry juice of any kind? If so, what or how do you do yours? So we do it 2 different ways. Warren is...
Steamer juicer all the way.
Yep, steamer juicer, and you've got it down to pretty much a science on how you go about doing that. And that's a really great concentrated...
It's very, very
pucker
strong.
Up.
Yeah, it's like whiskey without the alcohol.
And I, a few different times, have made the cranberry juice. I just made some recently where you put the cranberries in the jar, put the boiling water over it, seal it, and then, like water bath can it, and then wait a month or so. And we just opened one the other day, and it's very, very weak. So I think the last time I did it, I must have...
Still good, though.
It's still good. It's just very weak. If you've ever had anything like fruit infused water or a cucumber infused water, it sort of reminds me of that, cranberry infused water. And I think last time I did it, I must have put 2 cups of cranberries in, because I do remember it being much more cranberry-y last time. So... Anyway, I'm going to do it again. I have some plans to do cranberries and blueberries. I'd like to try that juice method. And then Warren is going to do his juice method, maybe with cranberries and blueberries.
I want to try it.
Yeah, I think that would be good, because we have a lot of blueberries. I just organized the freezer. So Brenda is asking about our hot tub. She's interested in like the ventilation in our basement or about the bleaching system. And I'm not sure that is the same person. Yes, Brenda also asks, is the electricity super expensive, and something about what I did with bleach, and then what about moisture. So this could be its own video.
Sure.
Don't you think?
Yeah, the hot tub is nothing fancy. It's just a Coleman inflatable. I mean, they're pretty cheap.
As far as hot tubs go,
As far as hot tubs
we
go.
are on our third hot tub though. So if it's something that you think that you're going to get and then it's just going to last forever and ever, that really isn't what happens. You've had to do things like changing O-rings. We've had pump problems. Actually, the one that we have is out of commission right now because of we got the knockoff filters.
Big mistake.
Because I couldn't find the Coleman brand filters, and so I bought like a great big case of them through Amazon. And there's something different about the filter fabric.
The filter fabric, it will not allow anything. After
it
24
clogs.
hours, it will clog. Just the water itself will not flow through it.
Right,
so
and
there's
so
something wrong with that.
So something happened to the pump since we had those bad filters, and we just have not been able to find. Walmart used to always carry the Coleman filters throughout like the spring, summer, and they're starting to carry some filters right now, but still not the ones that we need. Electricity wise,
it doesn't use that much. It's just it's just a 110 outlet.
Yeah,
it's really not that noticeable on. Now when we have it outside, it has to heat more often.
Yep.
And you see a little increase on your electric bill, but not a lot.
But I mean, we love it. I want to get this one fixed or get another one because I mean, we absolutely love it. And as far as the basement and ventilation, we don't have any special ventilation down there. Actually, our basement in the winter is very dry, and so it's not a problem. I mean, the moisture has not ever been a problem for us.
No, we actually our house can get too dry in the winter.
In the winter,
And
yeah.
so to have it in the basement actually helps moisture level
Yeah,
in the house.
I think so too.
But I would not want it in the basement in the summer. It would just be too damp.
The chlorine dispenser. At first we only found the big 3-inch tabs and we had to break them up and everything to make them fit, and that was kind of a pain. But then I found some 1-inch tabs and those are really great. So I just ordered those through Amazon, and or I think I've picked them up at Walmart when they have them there too. Linda is asking, where can I find your potato soup recipe? So if you're thinking Amber's creamy potato soup, just type in A Country Life Amber's creamy potato soup into YouTube in the search bar. It should pop up.
It's in the cookbook, right?
It is, yeah. Nice. You can also buy the cookbook and the recipe is in there. Cheryl, have you ever tried No Knead pizza from Budget Bites? No. Budget Bites is a website.
Okay.
Kat says, I was wondering if you grilled the bratwurst after they were boiled.
Yes. I like to boil them in a can of beer with some water.
Sometimes a sliced onion if we're
Yes.
feeling fancy.
Yep. And you have to be careful. Don't overboil them. You want them just to a boil and then turn it off.
Yep. Otherwise they'll split or they'll just end up drying out.
Dry
like
out.
a lot of the juices will come out. Mary Ann says, any tips when making bread? How do you know if water is 110 degrees? My best tip is to just use a bread machine, and that warms up the water or the milk or the egg or whatever just to the right temperature, and then I always just use it to the dough cycle and then shape my own loaves. Otherwise, if I do a recipe where I'm not using the bread machine, I just use a thermometer. I have like a candy thermometer and I just check 110 degrees, stick it in the water. Basically, you want to put water on your wrist and you want to just like not feel it. If it feels chilly, it's too cold. If it feels like you're like, oh, that feels really warm, I would say that's too warm and it will actually kill the yeast. Carol asks, can you use squares of parchment paper instead for the burgers? Absolutely. You just have to cut them. Lindsay says, where did you find the cutter you use when slicing carrots and other vegetables? So Lindsay's referring to the crinkle cutter that I have. Mine actually I got from Pampered Chef 25 years ago or something, but you can buy those all over the place now. Sometimes they will call them a crinkle cut, like French fry cutter or vegetable cutter, whatever. So I can link one of those at Amazon if you're interested in that as well. Sue asks, is the pizza dough recipe in my cookbook for one pizza or two? Actually, that recipe is a doubled recipe, or actually kind of how I adapted an original recipe. And pizza crust is just really individual. So I have a smaller pizza pan and I also have a really big pizza pan. I also sometimes will just make pizza in my cast iron pans, which are different sizes. Or years ago, I used to make it on like a cookie sheet. On a cookie sheet and just make a great big rectangular one. I just usually make a whole bunch of dough. Sometimes I double the recipe that's even in the cookbook and I just spread it however I want it. If I want it a little thicker, then it's going to make less pizzas. If I want it to be a real thin crust, it'll make more pizzas. So you don't have to be like exact with the pizza crust. Cynthia asks, where are you located in Wisconsin? She lives in Antigo. We are in central Wisconsin. I think there's so much information out there that people can find out. That's all I say. Mary says, is there a link for the recipe for the sweet apple quick bread? I don't think so. I think I got that recipe out of a cookbook. I would imagine that I put that recipe in the description box of that video, but I will look and I will put that recipe in this description if I can find it again. It was a good recipe and we ate it all. Do you remember that? But I don't think it was my favorite quick bread, but it was good and we ate it up fast. Mrs. Red says, what's the meaning behind the name Hug and Kiss Soup?
Well, Hug and Kiss Soup was named by my mother, and it was one of my childhood favorites. And she would just say that when you make the soup, while making it, you need to give a hug and a kiss to your mom. And so that's kind of how that started. And
I always thought it was that the soup was like getting a great big hug and kiss from your mom.
It is.
So I guess either way. Karen says, when you made your brats, you boiled them. How did you get them browned?
On the grill.
On the grill. Specialized Mama says, do you not eat meat every Friday? I thought it was only during Lent.
For sure during Lent we do not eat meat. But I'd say 50-50 on Fridays.
As we learn more and more about our Catholic faith, because we are always learning something new.
I think we eat meat less and less on Fridays.
We eat meat less and less because...
Which is hard because I love meat. I am a meat eater. Yes.
Because what we found out and what we have learned is that Fridays are supposed to be like a penitent day, and there should be some kind of sacrifice. And so the church says meat is a great sacrifice. And if you don't do that,
having to raise kids was a sacrifice.
It's a sacrifice. And that if you choose to eat meat, then you should do some other sacrificial act on Friday. Aaron asks, oh, this is a big question. How did you decide to be done having children? Was it a hard, well, let's stop at that question. How did you decide to be done having children?
We didn't.
Actually,
we were, when you're young and you're trying to plan a family, and then things don't always go according to your plan. Yep. And I think as our faith developed over the years, we kind of got to a point that we truly said, I always say thy will be done, and I always say, God, you know what I want, but you do what you need to do.
You do what you need to do.
So that's how we have 7.
Was it a hard transition, or did you still long for more?
I'm happy we have 7 kids.
Yeah. I wouldn't say that I long for more.
I don't long for more, but if it was put on our plate, it wouldn't bother me one bit.
Yeah. Michelle asks, how long do you think it would cook on low in the crock pot? She's referring to the meatball pasta. That's where I add I take a jar of pasta sauce and I take, I believe, equal amounts of water. I think it's another 4 cups of water. I mix that all together, put it with the pasta in a 9x13 pan. Meatballs on top, put some cheese on top, foil it, stick it in the oven. I would imagine you could do that in the crock pot as well, with probably the same amount of water, but I would have no idea how long to cook it. Maybe, I guess I would look up a recipe that calls for pasta in the crock pot and just see how long it should be cooked. Tammy asks, where did you get your wall wine holder from?
I actually made that, and it's actually quite simple. All it is, part of a pallet. I just cut off part of the pallet, and I installed a bottom to hold the wine bottles from falling through, and then I just hit it with a belt sander and a little bit of palm sander. I wanted to leave the rough mill marks in the wood. It gave it kind of that rustic look, but I just wanted it smooth to the touch.
You might hear kids in the background. That's what you get here. And the wine holder holds comfortably 10, and it might even hold 12.
Yeah,
Do you think another bottle could go in between there?
Maybe.
I'm not sure, but anywhere between 10 and 12 it'll hold.
Could probably fit a wine cooler.
A wine cooler. M. Plumber says, what kind of bird food do you use? I always use black oil sunflower seed. Lisa, could you freeze the OJ like a person freezes milk in the container? Oh, probably when I bought a whole lot of orange juice when they had a super deal. You probably could freeze orange juice.
Yeah.
There's probably enough sugar in it that it wouldn't split open or anything.
Yeah, probably not.
I don't know. Samantha says, what hair products do you use? I use dry shampoo. Batiste is the brand, and then I use whatever cheap hairspray.
I was going to say, whatever is on sale, that's what she uses. You always look good.
Nothing special. Anna asks, do your kids like horses?
Unfortunately, yes.
We actually had, well, I hold up 2. We actually had 3, 4, I don't know, at one point. So we had Pearl, which was Emily's pony.
We owned 2 horses.
Right, we owned 2 horses. We had Rhythm, that was Amber's horse. We had a miniature pony, that was Max. That was
actually,
I guess, both of the girls.
Yeah, that was a gift from some friends.
Yes. And then we also kind of like housed a horse for a winter or a summer or something. Bob, remember?
Yeah, I think he was potentially a gift, but Bob actually started eating the barn.
Yep.
And
Lauren was like, Bob needs to go.
Yeah, Bob needs to leave. The horses were a great thing. When I look at the time spent by Emily and Amber with the horses, and it really was a great thing for them. I'm not really a horse lover.
Yeah,
but
neither one of us.
I happily built the barn, happily bought a used horse trailer and fixed it up, and I mean, it was junk, but we turned junk into something usable.
Yep.
I would help them out however I could so that they could live out their dream of having a horse. But I told them, when you move out, you're taking the horse with you.
And actually in the spring of 2020, both girls sold their horses. They both were just on life paths that it just was not working to continue keeping a horse here. And although just within the last month or so, Maria has been saying, I want a horse. I want a horse. So I don't know. The next question she asks is, do your kids play sports? We were in BMX for a long time. I don't know, 3 or 4 years, something like that. And Sam, Joseph, and Peter were all in BMX.
Sam
Maria
did some summer league baseball. Last summer he was in a summer softball league.
Summer softball. So as far as like organized through a school or something,
Not so much.
Not so much, but lots of just sports. They've been in swimming lessons. Maria has done gymnastics, a few different like sessions of gymnastics. And then we have Tony asks, may I ask what was in the tin that you put on your burgers before serving? Those were French fried onions. Okay, and if this video has not gotten long enough, and I can't imagine anybody would want to sit and watch us yammer on and on for that long. But anyway, there's a few different people. Renee, and then who was the other one over here? And Leah also asked about how we met.
You want the short version or the long version? Short version, I was in my last semester of college. I have a geology minor, and I was taking a 1-credit geology field trip class. Basically, we toured rock formations of Wisconsin and looked at the geology and just kind of just talked about how it all happened.
Talked about geology for a whole weekend.
Jennifer.
And I was in my first year of teaching, and the school had hired me to teach life science and earth science. Well, I wasn't 100% certified in earth science, so I had to go back and take some extra college credits, like 6 more credits or something, to be certified. This was one of the classes that I signed up to do, was this weekend geology field trip.
So we basically toured Wisconsin in a 15-passenger college van, and we happened to sit next to each other on the van.
There's more to it than that.
Well, do you want the long version or the short version?
How we ended up sitting next to each other on the bus, though, is that so I met with the person with this girl, Cassie. I met with her, and Cassie, if you're out there, I would love it if you would contact me. But Cassie and I met for the very first time that morning, other than on the phone, and we were going to be camping in a tent together. So we had to meet at this parking lot at, I don't know, 6 o'clock in the morning.
It was early.
6:30 in the morning, something like that. Lo and behold, as we're talking about tents and sleeping bags and trying to get to know one another because we're going to spend the weekend with each other, he walks up, walks over. I still know the blue jeans he was wearing and the jacket and the Wilson duffel bag. And anyway, I looked at Cassie, who I had just met that morning, and I said, see that guy over there? I'm going to marry him. And she was she was like, who is this whack? And anyway, I positioned myself to make sure that I was sitting next to him on the bus and got to know him, and the rest is history. And here we are, married.
Here we are.
So that's how we met. And I think I have a little bit of that story in my cookbook, possibly.
Possibly. Yeah.
I think
I'd have to go back and look.
Yeah, I haven't read the intro pages for a while, but I think that's it. So anyway, I hope that you guys enjoyed this Q&A video. If you have other questions that you want me or Warren or us or whatever to answer in the next month, make sure that those get in, like whatever month we're in, make sure those questions get into the comments of one of those videos. And Emily, she goes through all of those comments. She reads every single one, laughs at some of them, and she writes down, she types them all up for me so that I can answer the questions the next month. Oh,
you just said
I just said, oh, I'm so from Wisconsin. Yeah, and that's going to be it. So we will see you guys in the next video.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks for hanging with us.